I think this was the right decision actually. In given the circumstances, State Bank has no other option to go unchanged for a couple of reasons. I mean, there were some proposals from many of institutions that cut the 100 basis point, but I think cutting interest rate down at this situation when you're having increasing trend in inflation, in the last couple of months, inflation, CPI based inflation is increasing once again. It's more than 29%. The core inflation is also increasing in the rising trend actually. In this context, if the State Bank has two options, either cut the interest rate down or keep it unchanged. There was no option for increasing. So I think State Bank of Pakistan opted a good option because cutting interest rate at this point of time has really worsened the inflation outlook further. And it has also most probably hurt the stability of the rupee actually. So I think this was the right decision, good decision. And many of the people, those who are arguing that, in interbank, in the markets, the bond rates are lower than the policy rate of State Bank of Pakistan. This is because the market is getting confidence from the stability of rupee and overall economy that is there. And one of the key factor of stability in the market is this monetary policy stance, where State Bank of Pakistan has clearly given a signal that it will continue to tighten monetary policy until and unless there is the inflation or the rising inflation. So overall, if you combined all this stuff, it was the right decision. State Bank has no other option. Cut at this point of time would have really hurt the stability of rupee and inflation outlook in the forward-looking context. I think going forward, State Bank of Pakistan will be very mindful and very rightly on interest rate changes or policy rate changes, and it should be very mindful. It should not only see what is happening in the bond market and what are the T-bills ratios. It's very critical that it keeps an eye on inflation and also very mindful that the changes in policy rate will also have an implication for stability of exchange rate, which is there. So until and unless inflation slows down and there is a reverse trend on inflation, and particularly until core inflation stops increasing at least or starts coming down, State Bank should keep its monetary policy stance because it should not be worried. The State Bank should not worry actually what is the market, for example, saying that a higher interest rate is costing a higher cost of debt to government. This is not State Bank's responsibility to cut the cost of borrowing of government. State Bank is primarily meant to control inflation, and it should continue its monetary policy stance, and particularly now when it is the broader core, the sort of mandate of State Bank of Pakistan after SDPI Amendment Act 2021 is to keep the inflation under control. And this is where so far State Bank Pakistan has not been able to deliver fully. And I think this is the now time that State Bank should give a very clear message that policy rate changes are linked to inflation changes and inflation outlook in the future. And rest of the things are not guiding or driving monetary policy decisions such as policy rate decision. And I think so far in last couple of monetary policy committee meetings, State Bank has been able to convey this message very clearly. The people were expecting, market was expecting, many experts were expecting that it may cut the policy rate down, but State Bank hasn't done it, keeping in mind that inflation is still there. There is a risk of higher inflation further going up. So that I think will be the key objective or key deciding factor of policy rate changes. I see going forward that inflation may still continue rising. So State Bank of Pakistan should continue its monetary policy stance. And even, this may be an unpopular opinion, but if inflation continue to rise, State Bank of Pakistan should not fear raising policy rate accordingly. It should keep an eye on inflation outlook and must make decisions accordingly without worrying what is happening to the cost of borrowing, because that is not the responsibility of State Bank of Pakistan. Its main responsibility is to keep the inflation in control.